Okay, so in getting started in just a continuation of passing by value and passing by reference, this first example I went ahead and brought back from my last demonstration. And in this example, we learned that because of our data type, which is int, integers are passed by reference by default. Excuse me, this is the old comment. Integers are passed by value. I should probably bring back, there we go, a couple more control Z's. Integers are passed by value. I was reading my comment and then I go, wait a minute, that's not right. And hopefully, if you paid attention already, you begin to understand what that means. Back to the first lecture when we were talking about inputs and outputs. So if I look at my method, do work is the identifier, and hopefully by now you can kind of look at that method and you can see that it takes one input. And because it returns void, the return data type, it has 0 outputs, right? So one input, 0 outputs, and that's what you could tell by looking at the method signature. We also learned that your methods can have many inputs. So how would I add another input to my method? What would I do? Yeah. Yeah, we add another parameter. So we're going to put a comma and maybe say decimal and money. And so now our method has 2 inputs. And if I wanted to have a third, decimal more money. And so I mentioned previously that your methods could have 0 inputs. And so if you delete all of your parameters, okay, our method doesn't have to have any inputs. So what I said was a method could have 0 or many inputs, right? And as far as the outputs are concerned, we said a method could have 0 or 1 output, right? Void says this has 0 outputs. If I put a data type here like int, now our method has to return something. It has to return an int. Okay, so that return data type is our output. Void means 0, int means 1. What that ultimately means is you would pass this int, you would pass the number 56, and you would be able to work with that value inside of your button click. And so I would say int return number equals, now that our method sends data back, I can take this 56 number and store it inside of this integer. Okay, so effectively what I'm able to do is this method can essentially modify one variable inside of my event handler. Because we learned that integers are passed by value, therefore if we modify those integers in the method, you're not modifying the integers back in the button click. So when you think about the outputs of a method, you can only affect one piece of data when you call a method. If you're passing variables that are like these primitive data types, or as you would call value data types. Well, that was a thing in coding that, there's a limitation, you would say, right? You were limited in other languages by this kind of concept that these methods could only return 0 or 1 piece of data. Therefore, like up here in where you're calling the methods, you could only modify kind of one thing by a method call. Therefore, they introduced, and this is, I don't know, they, but this is literally going back to the first language that I studied was C++. You can change the way that variables are passed. And so I remember doing this in C++. So this has been around forever. Okay? And so to say that integers are passed by value is true. But what if I want this do work method to actually modify multiple values back in my handler? Okay, well then I could pass my variables differently. I could pass my variables by reference, and then my method calls could affect multiple pieces of data inside of my button click, right? Because right now you can affect 0 things in the button click, or you can affect 1, right? But if we change that, and all of a sudden we're passing typically value variables, right? Passing by value, and we change it to passing by reference. So let's do that, right? So I'm just gonna kind of bring back the decimal money, and I'll say decimal money is 1,000, and I'll say age, comma, money. Well, age is 38, money is 1,000. Adding the keyword ref in 2 places, in both the method declaration and the method call. Okay, so there's a keyword. The keyword is ref. And what it does is it basically changes how the values are passed. You're no longer passing these integers by value. You're forcing them to pass by reference. What does that mean? Well, if you modifying them inside of this user age plus plus and money plus equals 1,000. And I'm going to return void. Now this doesn't return anything, so we just get rid of that. Okay, so as demonstrated here, age is 38, money is 1,000. We make the user go older, and we make the money go up by 1,000, and I'll print it out, and we should, by changing them in the method call, now we should change them back inside of the handler. So you can see back in the button click after the method call, age has gone up by 1 and the money's gone up by 1,000, right? So what this allows us to do is modify multiple values in the method that is calling another method, right? So it's kind of working around that limitation, if you will, that at the end of the day, a method can only return 1 piece of data. Therefore, you can only assign that to 1 value. Okay? Now, I say that it can return 0 or 1 thing. Well, that 1 thing could be an array. And so I say it can only return 1 piece of data, just realizing that 1 piece of data could be an array, and that array could store a lot of things. Okay, so there's kind of another way of just not passing, working around that limitation, I should say. So ref is a keyword. You need to, now if I were to delete it here and just kind of bring this back out, of course you need it in both places. Again, you need it in the method declaration and the method call. There's another keyword that works the same way, but it confuses a lot of people. And I say the same way with one minor difference. Notice right here that our data that we're passing, the data that we're passing is declared and initialized. The declaration's on the left, the assignment or the initialization is on the right. So this is a variable that's both declared and initialized. if I just declare the variable and the variable has not been initialized, you cannot pass by ref. This only works if your variables have been declared and initialized. Enter the new keyword. The new keyword doesn't have that limitation. It works the same way. It passes by reference. But it's a different keyword. The keyword is out. So I'm going to replace the keyword ref with the keyword out. And you're going to notice I can't increase by 1 because it's never been initialized. So I would say 38. You know, you have to initialize it. Money equals 1,000. Okay, you can't change something that's never been initialized. You have to initialize it at some point. So I went ahead and then initialized it. And again, passing with this other keyword, this out keyword, works the same way as passing by ref with one minor difference. You don't have to initialize your variable. And now, of course, back here, we can see that our one method changed our two variables passing by reference. Okay. Your lab, I think the first lab, tells you to pass 4 variables by reference, right? So you need this theory even in order to do your first lab. Cool? Questions, comments, concerns? Kept that one short. Passing by reference keyword, passing by out keyword modifies these variables in their kind of default how they're passed.